The 10-minute drill.
This is a big one.
Covered by Universal Roof and Contracting. The difference is universal.
On 1010XL.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Hit it. A lot happens over the course of a sports weekend, and the drill is here to recap it for you. So we'll hit some of the headlines and maybe some other stuff too. We call it the 10-minute drill. It's a nice, neat little package for you. Coming up bottom of the hour, Florida and Florida State got very encouraging news from a couple of football commits as they competed at the Ultimate High School Quarterback Showcase. I'll give you the details and exactly how that played out coming up next segment. But for now, let's take a little spin around the globe, shall we?
Let's do it. Obviously, Jeff, the top thing I think everybody was talking about over the weekend was the news that the Washington Redskins and also, to a degree, the Cleveland Indians appear to be fast-tracking now towards changing the names of their franchise.
Yeah, we saw this one coming, right?
Yeah.
And, look, it looks like Daniel Snyder with the Redskins is on board, I guess, at least more than he ever has been. And, look, at the end of the day, it's money talks. And when FedEx Field said, yeah, it's been a while now, we're really not comfortable with this, we may pull out, Daniel Snyder suddenly wasn't as attached in the line to the tradition and history of the nickname. So, again, it'll cause the extremes on the right and left to yell back and forth, and the rest of us in the middle will ignore you loudmouth know-it-all idiots. And we'll stay in the middle and try and treat people, fairly and with respect, and life will be fine. It's just a football nickname. And there's no argument that you can give me other than it's just a football nickname. Nothing changes. There are no ramifications there. It's just a football nickname. And if it needs to be changed, change it. And in 30 years, it will be forgotten. And if you have a stronger feeling than that on it, then I would suggest you need to maybe develop some more passions in your life of more important things to worry about than a football nickname. That's just my opinion.
Now, when it comes to Washington, it seems like people have been kicking around a lot of ideas. I don't know if you saw some of the, proposed, theorized, possible changes for the club. I know Dwayne Haskins came out and said he's in favor of red tails. If they do, you basically keep the uniforms, I think, in essence, the same.
Yeah,
outside of swapping the logo.
It doesn't. I don't care. I don't care what they name it. I don't. I mean, just as I don't care that if they change it, I could care less what they name it. Call them the Washington Seagulls. Call them the Washington Warriors. Call them the Washington, astronauts, the Cosmos, the Senators, the whatever. I don't care. I don't care at all. I don't care at all what you call them. Just call me when the Jags win on Sunday.
We're just a couple days away from teams reporting to Orlando, Jeff, for the NBA's resumption of play at the end of the month. But another big name won't be coming. Victor Oladipo announcing that he'll be skipping the Orlando resumption of play session.
Yeah. Look, Oladipo's a little bit different deal because he was coming off that torn quad from a year ago, and he had just barely started to play. The Pacers you wouldn't think could win it all, although I would argue that East, Milwaukee has looked pretty doggone good, but it's far from a foregone conclusion who's going to win in either league. So if you're sitting there as the 5 seed and your best player gives you a chance to maybe win that second-round matchup and make a run, it would be disappointing that he doesn't. I can buy more not playing if you're coming off of an injury and you're worried about that, so you're not quite healthy, or if you're worried about future injuries because of a short season. We talked about that with some of the baseball players. But I'm not down with professional athletes not playing because they're afraid they're going to get the coronavirus. I'm not down with that at all because everybody in the world is all off working, and healthy professional athletes are at less risk playing basketball and the effects of coronavirus than they are getting in their car and driving to the practice facility. They have a better chance of something harm befalling them in their car ride to the practice facility than they do if they would happen to be among those that were unfortunate enough to actually get the coronavirus. But they certainly have been given the options by teams. Some have taken, and some haven't. Now, is Oladipo and the Pacers probably aren't a huge enough boy to register. The one guy who is out there in the sports world still sitting on the fence is Mike Trout, who continues with a narrative that leaves the door open that he won't play strictly because of the coronavirus, which, again, in the mentality of a professional athlete, I 100% don't understand. And I'm surprised people don't want to play and work. I want to work. We've worked through all of this, not because we were made to, not because we didn't, especially early, have concerns on how easy it would be to get sick. But I want to work. I would like to think that if you're a professional athlete, you'd want to play, but apparently not all do.
Speaking of eventful weekends, it was certainly an eventful weekend for the new look Bryson DeChambeau. He had a hell of a weekend at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, a 3-shot win, but it wasn't without controversy after he had an incident, I believe it was on Saturday, as he was filmed having a little bit of a Sergio-esque hissy fit in a bunker and confronted the cameraman about it, got mad about him, quote, showing a, quote, potentially vulnerability and, quote, hurting someone's image.
Yeah, I look, 100% disagree with Bryson DeChambeau. That was a big – and I'm not so disappointed with the initial blow up on the course and maybe even saying something to the photographer there as it happened. But to ride it out, to roll with that, to continue with that, really, really weak. Really weak. In case here's what happened. Bryson DeChambeau hit like a bad shot out of a bunker, and then he did the slam the club in the bunker, and mutter and complain, and he's walking out of the bunker, and one of the cameramen follows him out of the bunker as he walks up onto the green like we do every week. Well, if you don't want to be known as a bad sport, then don't be a bad sport. So I don't think they're milking it, Bryson, to follow you up to the green, to continue to read it's an emotional game, right? To continue to read your emotion as you go. That's on you. So for DeChambeau to complain about the camera showing him being a bad sport, with me, carries no merit. And at the same time, I also think based on how the weekend went and how DeChambeau's been playing, it should also be a small sidebar to what happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal, right? Yeah. It wasn't the end of the world. But I think his mentality of like needing protection, that doesn't fly. You're out on a golf course. You know where you are. Yeah, you know it's being televised.
It's foolish to ask the Togs to insulate you.
That's foolish. But he is an odd dude, man.
He's a weird guy.
But he is hot as a freaking firecracker.
And everybody was critical about it, like his weight gain. He was bombing it.
He averaged 350 yards this weekend. It's the most ever in the history of the PGA Tour. The previous had been Tiger averaged 341 one year at the British. He averaged 350. And those are like the way they measure driving average on the PGA Tour is they take 2 select holes and they use just those. But if you used every hole, he would have averaged over 320 yards. Look, the guy takes a nuanced scientific approach. When he began his career, all the focus was on the physics and the angles and the length of the shaft and, the swing plane and all those things. And now he's taking it up another level by by adding all those pounds and pounding the golf ball. And so far, so good. Since the return, there have been 4 events, okay? I'll also give DeChambeau credit for this. Another thing that separates him from Xander Schauffele or Kevin Kisner or Jordan Spieth, or he plays every week. I also love a guy that plays every week. And DeChambeau has played all 4 weeks since the return. This is where he ranks in these key categories among all the golfers since the return. Shots gained off the tee, first. Score in relation to par, 69 under, first. Rounds in the 60s, 14. First. Top 10 finishes, all of them, 4. First. Earnings, $2.1 million. First. Wins, 1. Tie for first. Right now, there's no better golfer playing than Bryson DeChambeau. Now, the reality is there are just as good or better golfers in the world. They're not playing every week. So DeChambeau is also capitalizing right now, in my opinion, on playing every week. And yes, the fields are a lot tougher than they would normally be this time of year at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Don't get me wrong. He beat back a better field than we played at the Rocket Mortgage last year by a million miles. But it's all a relative that you don't have DJ and Rory and Koepka and Tiger and the list goes on. You don't have all those guys every week. And DeChambeau you do have every week, and he is certainly making his presence known, just bombing the golf ball and then dealing with it from there. It's almost like what the mentality was when this whole new craze started. And then we backed off of that a little bit, and now it's like the way they teach young kids now to play golf, it's not a precision sport. They get them to tee up high and get them to hit the ball as hard and far as they can, and then we'll go from there. We'll figure it out from there. And, boy, it proved the difference with DeChambeau is he's not hitting it all over the yard. He's knocking the stuffing out of the golf ball, but he's keeping it in play also. And it's leading to some ridiculous scenarios on the golf course of being, 60 yards out on a 420-yard par 4.
I don't know if you were watching. There was a kind of scary moment yesterday at the Brickyard as there was a bit of a pileup in the pits, and a tire changer for Ryan Blaney got pinned between Blaney's car and another car that got kind of sideswiped into him. The guy's okay, but it's not often you see a red flag thrown for something that happens on pit road.
No, it was okay, but it was scary.
It was scary.
He got pinned between two cars, and when you hear the story or read the story, it doesn't have the same effect as when you actually see the video.
Yeah.
And you see the video, it's amazing what the human body can endure, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, and to that point, I'm sure you saw the video from Saturday, too, at Yankee Stadium during
Tanaka took one
off the dome. Exit velo 112 off the bat of Giancarlo Stanton. And it's not a long ways from home plate to the mound.
Yeah. No, that's a good pop right off the forehead there.
I mean, it was like I watched the video and I cringed. The sound that thing made.
I think maybe my least favorite video in all of sports is the pitcher taking one in the face off of a bat. And there are a lot. I don't like to see guys' legs turned in the wrong direction. I don't like to see what I saw on pit road yesterday. But for pure squeam, to me, it's the pitcher taking one, neck up off the bat, line drive.
And it brought back up the conversation. Every time something like this happens, people keep saying, pitchers are so close to home plate with the exit velo just going up and up and up. At some point, it's like, do you require pitchers to wear some kind of helmet?
And well, if a helmet,
like John Olerud style helmet.
Well, that's not enough. You got to put on a face mask.
Yeah.
I mean, they take them in the face and the forehead, and it's not all. And listen, these guys we lose sight of sometimes of baseball players because they're not playing a fast twitch sport. They're not, trying to get around the corner on a football play or sprinting up and down the court in basketball. But they're awesome athletes, all of them, with quicker reaction times than the normal person. And with everything that you just said, it's not like there is a crisis epidemic of pitchers getting, line drives off the noggin, but every one that happens is one too many, especially for the optics.
It's so scary, man. It's so scary.
Not good.
And there you go.
Well, that's it, gang. That's the 10-minute drill. I would give you the floral arrangement from Kuhn Flowers, but the early bird got the worm today.
Yeah.
We played Whether or Not in the 6 o'clock hour.
Shout out to Kuhn
That's
and
what
Danny.
you missed if you're just getting up and going.